Thank you, Lascan Corda. Minister, I want to welcome the news this week that Great Glen Resources has withdrawn their application for a prospecting licence in County Donegal, which has been confirmed by your department on Monday. So the future mining of barytes, base metals, gold and silver in the area of Glenfin would have had a very negative impact, not just on the environment, but on the landscape as well as the health of the local people. I believe that this is a vindication of the strength of the local communities who came out in full force against the issuing of a prospect licence, which would have seen 52 townlands across Donegal negatively impacted by mining activities. Last week, I attended a public meeting that was organised by people in the Glenfin area who were objecting to the issuing of an exploratory licence and the consequent granting of an extraction licence if deposits were found to be there. Residents in the area have seen for themselves the problems exploratory licences have caused for communities, such as is currently underway in Greencastle in County Tyrone, where a prospecting licence has been granted to the Canadian company Dalridian, which is now in the process of exploring for gold. The company has plans to mine for gold in the Sperrin Hills and valleys and build a massive toxic mineral processing plant. As well as that, this will mean waste dumps full of discarded rock being left behind, which will have been processed using cyanide and other chemicals all over the area, not to mention the fact that the Sperrins has been designated as an area of an outstanding natural beauty. An unprecedented 10,000 objections were lodged against the plan thanks to the Save Our Sperrins campaign, who successfully galvanised the communities into action and who continue to call for an end to the granting of mining licences in the north. Minister, this should indicate to you the strength of objections coming directly from the communities that will be most affected if mining licences are granted. For now, Great Glen Resources have turned away, but there is still an open call for applications for a prospecting licence, which is open until the end of this week. Minister, not only do communities in Donegal want to say no to Great Glen Resources, they want to say no to mining permanently, and they seek a commitment from you to cease the granting of prospecting licences now and into the future. So my question, Minister, to you is, will you commit to the preservation of our rural communities, natural habitats and biodiversity, and to our climate action goals by ceasing the granting of all prospecting licences from here on out? Thank you.
Well, the position in relation to prospecting licences, it is controlled by a very strict regulatory regime, and as the Deputy says, when there is an application, there is an opportunity for objections to be lodged. There is also very clear rules regarding protected areas where no such licences could be considered. In the event that such a licence moves beyond, if you like, taking samples and investigating the opportunities to actually drill, there is a requirement for an environmental impact assessment. That is a new requirement that is being developed. So I can assure the Deputy that there are very strong protections within the existing acts to ensure that any exploration for mineral resources are done according to the very strictest of criteria. So that is the way in which this has been handled. There are quite a number of prospecting licences in place. I think there's several hundred of them, and in the event of them seeking to develop further in the way that the Deputy expresses concern about, there would have to be an environmental impact assessment, and that would have to be a major factor in deciding on any application. If there was any question of risks to public safety or damage to the natural environment, that would need to be considered, that would be considered under that environmental impact assessment, and it would only a decision to allow that would only occur in the event that the public were being protected by the proposal being put forward.
Parliamentary, 1 minute.
Minister, the real situation is actually a lot different than what you say. Legislation is extremely weak with regards to consulting local communities who are being affected by these developments in the mining. And current legislation regulating mining practices in Ireland does not sufficiently provide for proper consultation with communities from the very beginning. All the local community in Glenfin saw was a notice in the local papers saying that they had 2 weeks to lodge objections. That's not consultation, and that only generates further distrust and brings us to where we are today. I also believe, even with economic lenses on, mining in Ireland does not offer the best value for money, creating a marginal number of jobs, of course inflated by this government, which continues to advertise Ireland at international events as a destination for extractive industries. A number of companies do not pay in lieu royalties or make one-off payments, and it's obvious that Ireland has been presented as a flexible destination for mining companies, and the Government has lobbied strongly for Ireland as a mining destination, for example in the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada conference in the last year. In 2015, the Fraser Institute declared Ireland as number 1 under the headings of tax, political stability and the industry's perception of government policy, while simultaneously performing poorly when it came to the certainty of rules surrounding environmental protection, which corporations obviously don't like. So, Minister, your government goes out and actively pursues the miners and the mining companies. When are you going to actually protect the communities that you're imposing this mining on?
Minister.
I'd like to assure the Deputy that there is no question of government imposing. These are applications that are done on the basis of legislation that has been passed by this House. The House sets out the requirements in relation to applications, public notice, objections, evaluation of objections, environmental impact assessments. And that's something that has been agreed by the House. We have set the rules under which licences are issued, and they are very stringent rules. And they require those who are looking to prospect and move beyond that to actually drill to meet very, very high standards. Those standards have been set and they're continually being tightened and monitored by the agencies that we've appointed, like the EPA and other environmental protection agencies, to ensure that the public is fully protected under the legislation that we in this House have passed. So that's the approach. There is no attempt by government to impose on communities. This is done under a very clearly set of legislative provisions that we in this House have decided upon.
We move on now